So here's something that should stop you cold. Congress changed a Social Security rule in January 2025 that had been taking money from millions of American retirees for over 40 years, not reducing their benefit slightly, taking hundreds of dollars a month, every month, for decades, from teachers, firefighters, police officers, nurses, postal workers, and federal employees who spent their careers serving the public. And when the rule changed, the government owed those people money going back to January 2024. So far, $17 billion has been paid out to 3.1 million people. But here's what I need you to understand right now, today. There are still people who are owed money or who qualify for benefits they have never collected, who have no idea the law changed. People who gave up years ago because they were told their Social Security benefit would be reduced to zero. People who never applied because nobody told them to. And the Social Security Administration will not call them. If that's you, or if that's someone you know, a parent, a sibling, a neighbor who taught school or wore a badge for 30 years, this video is the call they didn't get. And there's something else I want to cover before we're done that almost nobody is talking about. The retroactive lump sum payment that arrived in people's bank accounts in early 2025, the money they're celebrating, is sitting in their 2025 tax return right now, building a Medicare premium surprise in 2027 that they don't see coming. Good news and a tax trap in the same envelope. And we'll get to both. By the way, my name is Edward Gray, and I'm a retiree just like you. On this channel, I share what I've learned from my own retirement, my own mistakes, and the conversations I've had along the way. So you can see where you stand and what you might do differently. If that sounds like something you want more of, hit subscribe and become part of this community. And while you're down there, drop a comment. Did you know this law changed? Tell me yes or no. All right. Let's get into it fast because this is time sensitive for some of you. You see, there were two provisions buried inside the Social Security system since the late 1970s and early 1980s that most Americans had never heard of until they retired and discovered what they were doing to their monthly check. The first was the windfall elimination provision, WEP for short. Here's what it did. If you worked in a government job, teaching, firefighting, police work, federal service, that didn't pay into Social Security, and you also worked other jobs during your life that did pay into Social Security, the WEP formula reduced your Social Security benefit from those other jobs. Not eliminated it entirely, reduced it, using a modified formula that replaced less of your earnings at the lower end of the calculation. The average reduction was around $350 a month. For a man who spent 20 years in the classroom and another 15 years in private sector work, retiring thinking he'd collect a reasonable Social Security benefit from those private sector years, $350 less every month was not a rounding error. Over a 20-year retirement, that's $84,000 taken from him that he earned and paid taxes on. And the WEP didn't care that he spent those years serving his community. It applied the penalty automatically because of how his career was structured, not because of anything he did wrong. Now, here's the second one, and this one is worse. The government pension offset. GPO. The GPO didn't target the worker's own Social Security. It targeted the spousal and survivor benefit. If you had a government pension and you were eligible for a Social Security spousal or survivor benefit based on your spouse's earnings record, the GPO reduced that spousal or survivor benefit by 2/3 of your government pension amount. Let me show you what that looks like in practice. A woman retires from teaching. Her pension is $1,500 a month. Her husband paid into Social Security for 30 years and passed away. She would normally be entitled to a survivor benefit based on his record. The GPO takes 2/3 of her $1,500 pension, that's $1,000, and subtracts it from the survivor benefit. If the survivor benefit was $1,000 or less, and for many couples it was, the entire survivor benefit is wiped out. She receives nothing. It's not an edge case. Over 70% of the people affected by GPO had their entire spousal or survivor benefit eliminated, not reduced, gone. A woman who taught children for 30 years married a man who worked in the private sector and paid into Social Security his entire career. And when he died, the GPO meant she received none of his Social Security benefit despite being his surviving spouse. And both of these provisions had been in place since 1977 and 1983, for over 40 years. Well, in January 2025, Congress ended them. Both of them, permanently. The Social Security Fairness Act was signed into law on January 5th, 2025. And here's what that means in real terms. WEP is gone. The workers who had their Social Security reduced because of a government pension now receive their full benefit, the amount they actually earned and paid into from their private sector work, calculated without the WEP reduction. GPO is gone. Surviving spouses who had their spousal or survivor benefits wiped out now receive what they were always entitled to, the full benefit based on their spouse's earnings record, unaffected by their own government pension. And it's retroactive. December 2023 was the last month WEP and GPO applied. January 2024 forward, the full benefit applies, which means everyone who was being penalized from January 2024 through whenever their case was processed is owed a lump sum covering that gap. SSA started depositing retroactive payments on February 25th, 2025. By July 7th, 2025, 5 months ahead of the original schedule, SSA had processed 3.1 million payments, totaling $17 billion. Most people began receiving higher monthly amounts in April 2025. Some people saw $200 more per month. Some saw $500. Some over $1,000 more every single month for the rest of their lives. And a lump sum check covering January 2024 through early 2025 landing in their bank account. For a lot of people, this was genuinely life-changing. Years of reduced income suddenly corrected. Money owed for over a year arriving all at once. But not everyone has gotten theirs. And not everyone who should have applied has applied. And that's where I need you to pay close attention. There are two specific groups of people who may be owed money or benefits right now, and most of them don't know it. The first group is people who never applied for Social Security because GPO would have zeroed out their benefit. Think about what that means. A woman retires from state government. Someone tells her that because of the GPO, her survivor benefit based on her husband's record will be reduced to zero by her pension, so she never files. Why would she? There's nothing to collect. Except now there is. The GPO is gone. That survivor benefit she was told would be eliminated is now fully available to her. But SSA doesn't know she exists as a potential beneficiary. She never applied. They can't send her money she hasn't filed for. She has to go to ssa.gov and apply. And the retroactive window runs back to January 2024. If she applies now and qualifies, she may be owed over a year of missed benefits in addition to the higher monthly going forward. Nobody has called her. Nobody has knocked on her door. The responsibility to apply sits with her. And most of these women and men still don't know the law changed. The second group is people in complex cases that weren't fully automated. SSA processed 90% of the caseload quickly through automated systems. The remaining cases, situations with multiple benefit types, unusual earnings records, cases requiring manual review, were taking longer. Some of those are still being resolved as of May 2026. If someone you know was affected by WEP or GPO and hasn't seen any change to their monthly benefit or never received a lump sum notice, they need to contact SSA directly, not assume they don't qualify. Contact SSA and ask specifically about the Social Security Fairness Act and whether their case has been processed. Now, I want to make sure the men and women watching this actually do something with it rather than just watch and move on. 3 specific actions. If any of this describes your situation or someone you know, take these actions this week. The first, go to ssa.gov and log into your My Social Security account. Look at your benefit amount. If you were affected by WEP before January 2025, your monthly benefit should be higher now than it was in 2024. If it isn't, or if you haven't received a notice explaining a change, call SSA and specifically reference the Social Security Fairness Act. The second, if you or someone you know stopped short of applying for a spousal or survivor benefit because GPO would have eliminated it, apply now. The application for spousal and survivor benefits can be initiated at ssa.gov or by calling 1-800-7721-213. The retroactive window back to January 2024 is still available for new applicants. Every month you wait is a month of that retroactive window closing. The third, and this is the one I want to come back to in more detail because it's the one almost nobody's talking about. Check your 2025 tax return picture carefully before you file or after you filed, because there's a tax trap hiding inside this good news. If you're already asking yourself why a tax trap would hide inside getting more money, you should stick with this, because it's the thing that could cost you real money in 2027 from a decision made in 2025 that you had no control over. Here's the mechanism. The retroactive lump sum payments SSA deposited in early 2025 count as ordinary income in the year they were received. For some people, that lump sum covered 12 months of increased benefit, January 2024 through December 2024. For people processed later in 2025, it covered even more months. Depending on the benefit amount, these lump sums ranged from a few $100s to well over $10,000. Now think about what $10,000 in unexpected ordinary income does to a retiree's tax picture. If your normal 2025 income was sitting just below an IRMAA threshold, the income thresholds that determine your Medicare premium, that lump sum can push you over the line. And crossing an IRMAA threshold by $1 costs you hundreds or thousands in Medicare premium surcharges. For a full year, starting 2 years later. So the retroactive payment arrived in 2025. It pushed modified adjusted gross income over a threshold. The 2025 tax return is what SSA uses to set 2027 Medicare premiums. And in January 2027, the Medicare bill arrives at a higher amount with no obvious connection to the lump sum from 2 years earlier. The good news came in 2025. The bill comes in 2027. Now, some of you might be thinking, but I can appeal that IRMAA. And yes, the SSA 44 appeal process exists for genuine life-changing events. A one-time retroactive payment from a law change is unusual enough that an appeal may or may not be accepted as a qualifying event. This is worth a specific conversation with your tax advisor before assuming either outcome. What you can do right now is calculate where your 2025 modified adjusted gross income lands with the lump sum included. Pull your 2025 return or your 2025 income estimate and see whether the lump sum pushed you over the first IRMAA threshold. For married couples filing jointly in 2026, that threshold is $212,000. For single filers, $106,000. If you're near those numbers, run it specifically. And if you cross the threshold because of the lump sum, talk to a tax advisor about whether the IRMAA appeal process applies to your situation. This won't affect everyone who received a lump sum. It only affects people whose income was already close to a threshold. But for the people it does affect, knowing about it in advance is the difference between filing an appeal and getting blindsided in January 2027. Now, if this is giving you something you didn't walk in here knowing, if the WEP and GPO repeal wasn't on your radar, or if the tax trap angle was new to you, hit the like button right now. It helps this reach the teacher, the firefighter, the retired federal employee, the widow of a public sector worker who has no idea this law exists. And subscribe if you haven't, because the conversations we have on this channel don't stop at the headline. They go all the way to the bill that arrives 2 years later. All right, let me bring this together. For 40 plus years, WEP and GPO took money from people who earned it. Teachers, cops, firefighters, nurses, federal workers, their surviving spouses. Some lost $350 a month. Some lost everything. Survivor benefits reduced to zero because of a government pension their spouse had. The Social Security Fairness Act ended both provisions in January 2025, retroactive to January 2024. $17 billion has been paid out. Most people are already receiving higher monthly benefits, but some people still haven't seen a change, and some people never applied because they gave up. And every one of those people needs to take a specific action because SSA isn't going to find them. And if you received a lump sum, look at your 25 income picture before it creates a 20 on 27 Medicare problem you didn't see coming. The money is there. The law already changed. The only thing standing between the people who are owed it and the check is knowing to ask. Drop a comment and tell me, do you know a retired teacher, firefighter, police officer, or federal employee who was affected by WEP or GPO? Because sharing this video with them might be the most useful thing you do this week. And if today gave you something worth acting on, share it. Pass it to the person in your life who spent a career in public service and never got what they earned from Social Security. And if you're not already part of this community, come join us. Because this is what we do here. Real retirement, real money, from guys who are actually living it. Hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. See you in the next one.